come again?
French presentations.
One presentation. What is it? I don't know. It's a whole full deck there.
Is it in front?
Yeah. I doubt there's anything.
French.
Do you mind if I put my bag? Yeah.
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
And I'm just going to put my laptop.
Yeah, go for it, son.
That's okay if you don't mind.
Please, no, not at all.
Thank you so much.
No worries.
Thank you. I won't put my order because I know I'm thinking just put my order.
Yeah.
Not a good idea. Hi, Chris. You well? That's good. Did you have a good day yesterday?
Check, check, and check, check. Hi, how's it going? You good? No, it's needed for the stream.
Okay.
So anybody you interact with needs a microphone. I know it's an unnecessary thing.
Oh oh. Le petit bonhomme en mousse. Vous m'entendez? Eh, tu m'entends? Et là, tu m'entends? Okay. Ça marche, c'est bon.
Ah, c'est toi qui fais la
Comme vous voulez après.
Ah ouais, vas-y, moi je vais me mettre là. Quelqu'un aussi, quelqu'un qui a l'image, sur maquillage, je vais faire comme la nana qui est là.
T'inquiète, tu prendras un micro du coup. 1, 2. 1, 2, 1.
Ah oui, tu vas tout
Je me mettrai en backup pour les gens.
Merci. Allô, allô?
Mais si, il marche. Non, il marche. Il fonctionne. Si se mettait à marcher, ça serait un peu inquiétant. Mais regarde. Mais c'est lui. Non mais. Le gars qui est là, mais c'est lui. Mais c'est lui. Mais c'est incroyable. J'explique tout ce que je fais quotidiennement. J'ai 3 traits sur la TVA, sur la réparation. Ça, je pense que alors, sur la blague avec Christophe. Comme ça, si t'es chiche, demain, je vous fais une présentation sur la TVA.
Sur mon avion, silencieux. Il est silencieux de toute façon. Mais on va avoir le reportage.
Ceci dit, oui, c'est vrai que.
Tu pourras en faire une avec ton portable qu'on puisse poster vraiment après en stories.
Qu'est-ce qu'il fallait faire en story? En story.
Bah non, parce que je vais en faire plusieurs.
Le mec il gueule, je parle de mon téléphone et là. Oh, mais c'était les débuts.
Bah d'ailleurs, je vais mettre mon.
Donc Julie, tu as le jalon, donc c'est toi qui vas pouvoir parler au public.
Ah, parce qu'il y a. D'accord.
Tu connais pas ce truc? Non, si tu as la parole que si tu as le bâton.
Ouais, moi j'ai fait ça.
Donc tu peux pas.
Sinon, il vient pas. Je savais pas qu'est-ce que tu pas.
Il m'a énervé donc.
D'accord. On va se faire une bise. Ouais, c'est un plaisir de travailler ensemble. Est-ce qu'on chante? Carrément.
Si tu peux nous avoir des pouces.
Faut être en Afrique du Sud pour ça. Faut vivre en Afrique du Sud. Puisque ça, c'est pas dans mes
Merci beaucoup. C'était super.
On reste en contact si vous avez besoin de quoi que ce soit.
Il n'y a pas de souci. Merci pour l'accueil.
Merci de m'avoir accompagné dans mes différents meetings, déposé au bout du monde. Pas de problème. Pas au début, mais bon, je peux faire. Ouais, non mais t'as raison.
Merci beaucoup.
Bon, est-ce qu'on commence par une beatbox section?
S'il y a moins de 20 personnes, je viens travailler. Ouais, j'ai un certain standing. Allez, c'est pour détendre l'atmosphère. Quand j'ai fait une première interview, quand j'ai fait mon première interview avec Glotière, la avec Glotière, tu sais, il y avait une émission à la télé sur FR3. Et pour détendre l'atmosphère, il faisait ça. T'étais vachement à l'aise, tu vois, t'avais le mec qui était devant toi.
Attention parce que t'es en photo là.
Bah, je sais plus, il avait son émission de jeux vidéo sur FR3. Ouais, mais là c'était FR3 parce qu'on était parti à Strasbourg pour exemple.
On fait les cœurs. Moi c'est mon truc, mais c'est malheureusement pour les autres, tu vois.
Dans la salle de bain, ça va. Dans la voiture, ça passe.
Ouais. En fait, dès que t'as une petite caisse de résonance, en fait, ça va, tu vois. Mais là, la caisse de résonance c'est trop large, en fait. Ça passe pas. Là, c'est pas bon. Bonjour, donc voilà, on est là pour voilà, là. Du coup, bon, voilà.
Mais en vrai,
En vrai, on est en mode, tu vois, t'as rien dit, du coup, en fait.
Non, mais donc, tu vois.
Donc, en fait,
non,
en
mais
vrai.
donc, du coup, on est vraiment.
Arrête qu'on va arrêter de le dire. Non, en anglais, on va
yes,
on the hit. Comment on dit du coup en anglais? C'est quoi l'équivalent du coup en anglais?
At the resonance, mais c'est un peu.
Les Japonais font eno, eto.
Ouais.
Alors eux ils sont en train de moi c'est pas eno, ete, etone.
Ça veut rien dire.
C'est ça que tu l'as dit. Ah, eto.
lui tu peux lui dire, lui il va arriver à la faire.
D'accord.
Il me donne un tips d'une phrase, mais j'aime bien. Le yes, du oui, du non.
Moi ça me l'a fait
En fait, tu fais vraiment très attention au pré-speech. Ah là là. Ouais. On est très, très, très représentés. Je vais envoyer un petit texto. It's now never. Oui, c'est pour essayer de faire venir quelqu'un de plus. Donc c'est now or never.
On va peut-être commencer. On va peut-être attendre 100 personnes de plus.
Alors, bah, c'est très bien. Hein. En fait, j'avais déjà envoyé le message. À Paris, à Toulouse et à Rennes. On my head. Oh, I've got it. Elle va refaire. Voilà, voilà.
Quand je te dis que tu vas avoir.
Bah, pour l'instant, c'est, tu vois.
Oui, mais. On va les renvoyer chez eux. Quoi. Se faire renvoyer chez eux. Ouh, c'est lié.
never know. Oh. I always feel so nervous talking on a microphone because I think it's going to feed back and go, yeah, and all that. And all that kind of thing. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us in this workshop today. We have a massive French delegation actually with us here at Africa Games Week. If you haven't met anyone or if you're wanting to engage with someone, please come find me and I'll set up those meetings for you, because today's workshop is really about the building blocks and also going forward how we can build those relations with the French and see how we can better intertwine everything that we're doing together from our continent and theirs and their country. So I'm going to hand over to Kathleen to introduce everyone else, because my French is awful. Je parle un petit peu français. So my French is awful and I don't want to make any mistakes on people's pronunciation of names. So I'm going to hand over to Kathleen, who will introduce everyone today, and then we'll have a very interesting talk on how to actually build the building blocks and build that wall together between Africa and France.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Alex.
Thank you.
All right. So the French delegation, right? So we are 8 on this delegation, and very, very happy to be here this year again. And let me introduce you to our panelists today. So we have David Chadwick, we have Julie, and we have Philip. So we have prepared little slides so that you guys know what we are doing, but the rest of the delegation is here as well. We have Yves Le Yawank, so that is really some name that you cannot pronounce if you're not French. And even the French, they struggle. That's true. So Marie-Charlotte is also here, Loïc. Where's Jen? Jen is absent. Oh, Jen is talking on the other scene. All right, I'm sorry. And and Sun is also with us. So if you have questions afterwards for us, if you want to engage, if you want to learn a bit more in detail of whomever is doing what, feel free. We are here today, this afternoon, tomorrow also for some of us. And so yeah, that's me, Kathleen. I'm a business developer for some companies, and not only French but also abroad. A Brazilian company, and also the Blockchain Game Alliance, other blocks that we are building on. And yeah, so Yves is here as well, and this is Julie, David. It's a bit of a packed text here, but you know, you can go to our website or on the l'Institut Français or Business France. Everything is very much explained. By the way, I wanted to thank l'Institut Français for having us here. Thank you, Emmanuel, for everything that you've done for us. It's been a blast, really. So this is Jennifer, who is now talking on another scene. Loïc, he's based in Reunion Island, which is a French department, but it's very much closer to South Africa than it is to France, actually. We have Marie-Charlotte, who is representing one of the regional clusters in France, in the southeast of France. If I say Bordeaux, then it will talk to you way more than southeast of France. And then Philippe is a part of a director member of a school in the north of France called Rubica. Rubica also has partnerships with countries like Kenya, and they're also working on setting up something with Loïc, notamment. Sorry for the French. And yeah, and then Sun is also based in Reunion Island. Hi. And yeah, so I will give the word to Philippe now for a little presentation of what Rubica, the school in the north of France, does.
Yeah, this is Rubica. This is the hall of Rubica, so it's a huge building. And over there we have almost 1,000 students on place, right? And we are based in the north of France, in Valenciennes, close to the Belgian border, right? Go. And so here are the mainstream of our school. Foundation year is mostly for artists, because when we have the jury or the entrance in the school, we decide to propose some students. We have not the level expected in our school to have a year plus, just to revisit, I don't know the word, about morphology, perspective things, sculpture, and so on and so on. And after the three schools, because we have three schools under the banner of Rubica, the animation school, the video game school with three mainstream also game design, game art, sorry, and coding, and design, industrial design. So after I may say we will, yeah, this is the panel of who some companies we are linked with at the bottom. And most of our trainers are coming to this, from, sorry, this companies to give lectures. So we have all trainers working for the industry with the very last vision of the gaming, and so on and so on. Okay? On the left side, you have numbers saying who we are, and mostly in the center is what we have worked the last 2 years to have an education visa from the state, French state, which is very important for us. All right? So we are linked with this all people. All these people, sorry.
Yeah, I think that some number is for me, the most important one is like the employment rate after 1 year is 90%, which is amazing.
Normally we are not using this number. Normally it's 95%.
Oh.
Yeah, I may say, for example, I have a student that already have five, very interesting proposal of job, and is in trouble because he can choose. That's a problem of rich people.
Which one he will choose.
Yeah, but it's regarding not only the salary. The project is also have a look on the people who will be involved in the project, so he can level up more. This is. After we will have a short video of a game we made last year, first semester, second year. It's roguelike. We have a debate. Roguelike.
Corentin? It's not working.
Corentin, please. So here you will see it's about game feel. All right. I'll let you see the video, and after I will give you some words on it. Mets le son. Sound, please. Yeah, so the theme of this exercise was a roguelike, and there are few words, grandma, tomatoes, and I can't recall exactly the third one. So they created the game with these words, and this is it. And they have, how do you say this? Génération procédurale. Level design generated, let's say. It's too complex for me. It's really about game feel, right? So after they will work on different gameplays. This is one of the exercise, right? And
it's a question for you. Sorry to interrupt, but this is so made by second-year students, right?
Yeah, first semester.
Okay, and the whole courses is going from on how many years? 3 or 4 or 5?
5.
5 years. All right.
5 years, and it is a Unity-based gameplay here, right?
Okay, thank you.
And it's almost 2 game designers, I can't recall exactly, but 3 artists. So they choose on which part they will work, so special effects and so on and so on. And they made also the sound, even
Cool. Thank you very much for this presentation of Rubica, the school, so again in the north of France. Now we're going to give the show floor to Julie, who is going to present you guys her company. So take it away, Julie.
Hi, everybody. So we're going to talk about engagement and impact. Here we built a civic gaming studio, which is named Northern Lights Entertainment. We're a team of 19 based in Paris, but we have several nationalities. We have someone from Congo, someone from South Africa, someone from Morocco in the team, actually. And we're gender balanced, pretty proud about this, almost, because we're 19, so it's impossible, obviously. And so what we do is taking societal issues and turning them into playable, fun, engaging experiences into games. And we start with Nebule, which is our first game. It's a long one. It's a massively multiplayer strategy game where the players collectively rule an endangered galaxy. So, if it rings a bell about sustainable development, climate change crisis, all that kind of things, political inclusion, it's normal because that's the aim of the game. You start as a junior governor, you're entrusted with a planet, you have to show off your skill there before being able to take part into the more global astropolitics gameplay, where you can, if you have more ambition than the regular player, become up to the president of an interstellar nation, for example. Also, we have some espionage mechanics, some alliances mechanics, diplomacy, military, if the negotiation fails, because sometimes they fail. So it's a pretty complete game. We're currently in a playtest phase and raising funds, so it's really important for us to have good relationships, right?
Exactly, there you go. That's really, really on the spot. Yeah, thank you, Julie.
And I think there is a short trailer after that because an image is better than 1,000 words, so I'm just going to let you watch it. If it plays. Yeah, but we don't see it. While waiting, if you don't lack ambition, you should register for the playtest. We have several sessions ongoing, and we're testing both the local politics with 5 to 10 people in a session, up to the regional politics with up to 40 to 50 people in a session. So that's what we're currently trying to validate, and we're always looking for players.
So you were talking, oh, there you are, sorry.
Yeah, it was very short, just to give you an idea. Sorry about the streaming quality. It doesn't look like that in the game, I promise.
Well,
that's not us.
Woohoo! That was the next slide.
I'd be down for a dance, but
nah, it's too early, you know.
Shall I hand over to the next?
Yeah, let's, Davy, it's now your turn.
Hello. Here I am.
There you are.
My name's David Chadwick. I'm a French entrepreneur, and I co-founded the studio Pop Screen Game. And I'll show you a trailer of our first title. On the side, I'm the vice president of the Video Game Trade Association in France, which regroups a majority of the French developers, around 250 companies. And we are there to support, defend, and sell the gaming industry to all the politics in France and in Europe. So we work a lot to explain what we need, and very happy in France. We have a very good ecosystem where we have good funding and a solid ecosystem to develop our companies. So we're a bit more leisure-oriented, so we're working with some CCGs RPGs, high production value game based on some a new IP we are developing. So you can launch the trailer of the first title, which is called The Wacky Battles, and the second one will be announced in a few months.
Why do people always have, you know, links in presentations?
I could dance, but yeah,
On
I
the chair,
could,
on
yeah.
the chair, please. Come on.
Oh, that's the music. Sheesh. So the direction we took on this game, we wanted to do high production value game, which is super risky because obviously the production budgets are quite expensive, quite high, sorry, and still focus on the mid-core segment. So it's always complicated to define what a mid-core player is. But basically, somewhat a bit expensive to join the game, but you can expect these users to play month over month over month. So it's a live ops title. So a very basic RPG loop, a very basic CCG. The KSP is really on the graphic design where we put a lot of energy, lots of copycats and knockoff. What we keep saying is this game is very expensive, but we want this to be seen by the players, because when we talk about business and monetization, you need to make sure that the player feels comfortable spending money into your game and stay into the game long term. You can do this with very simple graphic, but you need to have the user feel comfortable that staying into your game, you can be there for months over month, especially for a live ops title where we'll be adding more content, more feature, and a lot of events. This is where we expect to have long-term retention.
Cool, thank you.
Yep.
Go.
No, just a few words on the, so the trade association is, as I said, a lot of studios are member of this association. We have some regional association as well, where the national one is working very closely. As we're talking about building blocks, this is typically the kind of organization which needs to exist in order to have all the studios meet, discuss, share. We're not really competing, you know, the gaming market is so big. We are very open in France. We share some numbers, we share some resources. There's a bit of tension on the hiring, but beside this, this is really what fosters the communication between studio and makes everything go better. It's not naive, it's really how it works, because just to finish, gaming is so complicated, getting really granular, very specialized, and it changes every year, especially mobile gaming. CPR problematic, first party problematic. You need to make sure always to be up to date, and you just can't be if you don't talk and discuss with people.
So now that you have the mic in your hands, let's continue, you know, with the first idea. Can you, for example, describe to the people here how the SNGV, what is the strategy of the SNGV to go around and build relationships?
It's really top, bottom, and bottom, top. But the first one is understand what the studio is needing, what the local, national industry is needing. So we will say about money is true. Funding is one of the major problems. It's not only this training, which is very important, because if you have the fund but nobody to hire, it just doesn't work. And understand the regulations as well. Regulation is a big challenge. I mean, GDPR is one, but there's all kind of regulations you can have on the store or imposed by first party. For instance, Apple. That's a nice
It's obviously
party.
someone's birthday.
Yes. You know, when Apple decided a couple of years ago now to spoof the information or the idea of the user, this had an impact on the industry, and you saw this in hyper casual and casual. So anyway, you need to have an organization to gather all this information, and what do we do with it? This is the second step. So understanding what is needed and start discussing with French government or the representative of these institutions, and Europe as well. Everything, you know, in France is connected to Europe. And it's built a network because there's a lot of meeting, of discussions, of information gathering both sides. And it's like a hub which creates value. It's not just gathering information and put this in on the website, because the core job of the SNGV, of the trade association, is to discuss with mayor, with deputy, with the MPs, with the embassy, to be able to have this reach on an international level, And this is a full-time job for 3 people, by the way, which is not enough. And this is why we can rely also on the regional associations.
Yeah, and that's actually, a very unique situation that we have in France, and that we can count on a basically daily basis, because they are giving us a backbone actually to really do and exercise our jobs as BizDev or as a studio director of schools, even running those people is not that easy. But if you have that backbone, then you can go and build and build and build and build. Relationships is not my preferred term, because I would say, relationship is more like in a marriage, or, that can sometimes get a bit, complicated. Let's replace the word relationships by network. How do you create your web network, and how do you go step by step from might be an indie developer, or you might be like working, I don't know, maybe at Ubisoft or it's okay, it's not that it's not broken. But yeah, so Julie, your studio is kind of new. It's a young company. How would you go around and start? What did you do to build your network?
Okay, so first of all, I don't come from the video games industry as a start. When I founded the studio, I had to figure out how it works, what kind of trade union we have, what kind of schools there are, because I didn't come from there. And so in order to build my company, I had to really map out all the ecosystem, all the actors, in order to get it the best way that I could. So when we started, we first aimed for the entire skills that we needed and where to find them. That was the first ever step, the first block that we posed to create the studio. And then we had to find out how we could actually recruit those people, because we could actually go to the schools and find people who wanted to create the studio with us and get them as partners. But we could also decide just to employ them and to go on a more monetized kind of basis and relationship and network, if you don't want to use the term relationship, sorry. And so basically, we looked around and we were in this very particular framework that is the French territory, because you have a lot that is done in France to help young startups and gaming studios to actually rise from the ground. And so when you start in France, you can get a lot of subsidies if you're in a tech-based company and that you can prove that you're doing something innovative. Would it be an innovation because you're developing new programs, for example, or because you're building something new from a social perspective as well? And so that's where we started, and how we actually then digged up into the school ecosystems. We actually got one of your students in the company, so we're all together.
How old is the studio now?
The studio is 4 years old. Basically, when we started, none of us were full-time, so it was really hard to master everything at the same time. But we created a framework that enabled everybody in the company to work on different hours, so we didn't have to be at the same time doing the same things and not even in the same cities. We were pretty ready for COVID, pretty ready to work with different time zones. But yeah, that was the beginning, and that also enabled us to be really attractive as a young studio, because we could attract talents that are young talents, but also talents with experience and young kids, because they knew that they could arrange their day of work to take care of their kids, bring them to school, feed them for lunch, and then go back to the work and deal when it suits them the best, and arrange the work load on a weekly basis rather than a daily basis, and we just do regular meetups to find out what's been done and so on. So building the good network is also creating the framework for the people to thrive with you, would it be within the company or as a contact. And that is from the other side. Like when we started raising funds, we understood pretty quickly that you have to give value to people, otherwise they just don't to you. And you have to help them connect, because that's how they will think about you later and put you in touch with other people. And I don't know how many of you here are facing this kind of issues, but that was something really, really important for us, and that's where we started. And that's why we're still here, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely something that you have to implement from the very, very beginning. For you, Philip, it's a bit different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you want to keep it, but no. So it's a bit different for you. Your position is actually a bit different than
Yeah,
studios.
I can
But
talk also how I
explain it a
built
bit.
my network. It's an old school way. I met people and say, yeah, you want to make a game? Yes, I'm a programmer and I'm an artist, so on, and we make games. And after I met some people, other people, and so on and so on. So I have a huge network because I started a long time ago. But now in school, we have to teach the students how to prepare their portfolio. Because the main thing is to have a clear portfolio, a good portfolio. That's why we are very tough on the work. We ask the students to make the difference between the other school. As soon as they met a company, we have special days in school to meet companies. They come and they have interview, but before they have a selection, right? It's a competition here. So we train students to be competitor in the good way.
Do the students have actually like courses that learn them how to pitch, how to make a good pitch?
Yeah, exactly.
How to do whenever their game is ready to get it to market, because it's not
Exactly.
only making a game, it's also getting it to market, right?
Yeah, we explain to the student that maybe they have the beautifulest game, but if they cannot pitch it, if they cannot present it to people, it's nothing.
So what is, in your opinion, a good pitch?
Clear.
What should be in it? What should
It has to be efficient.
not in it?
Depends on the they have to. We train them to explain very complex ideas or complex gameplays in few words, and these few words has to be very clear and don't miss the target, mostly.
So by target you mean, for example, do the elevator pitch when you're waiting for the bathroom or for to buy a coffee.
Yeah,
Be
exactly.
ready,
We
right?
train them by the corridors. They have to explain the game while we are walking. That's kind of elevator pitch. And they are trained also with the amphitheater, with a big place. It's almost 250 seats. And they are alone with all the sports, all the cameras, and they have to speak and to present to people. And for the beginning, it's okay, we go easy with this, but as we go further in the academic things and the years, there are more people coming and professional people are coming and give feedback about the way they present their games and so on and so on. You see the trailer, it's meant by the students, absolutely not us who are doing this. They prepare everything and they have this short trailer. It's also an exercise to present the work, so they have to choose which part is necessary and so on and so on. Okay, you notice there are a shop. It was a part of the exercise, so they have to show it. It's important also.
Are you encouraging the students also to submit their game, like, I don't know, maybe for last year students, to submit their game to like award-winning?
In fact, I understand. In fact, in the school, which is not an enterprise, une entreprise,
a company.
a company, yes, sorry, it's an association, right? And we have a double association, which is to promote or to publish the games made by the students. As soon as they enter this second section, which is called APER, there we have all the professional license, because here we are using academic license, and they have all the rights. Okay. Rubica has nothing related to this. As soon as they enter APER, they have all the rights and they can publish. If they earn some money, we ask them only for 2 months, all right, to give money to the how do you say this, le truc des étudiants, le bureau des étudiants.
Bureau of students?
Yeah, Bureau
like
of Students,
like
let's say,
something?
yes. And for new, for using by the students this money, all right? After these 2 months, if it's earning money, it's for them.
Can they incorporate with if they keep their IP, can they start eventually like their own company? So
Yes,
before-
exactly. We are working on this. We want to create an incubator because there is already an incubator, but it's not fitting well what we expect. So we will do this in Rubica.
Okay, thank you very much. So before we go further, I would really like to insist on the fact that whenever you have questions, please don't hesitate. Raise your hand and say, okay, what this is a bit blurry for me. Can you explain it or whatever? Don't hesitate. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, sorry for my accent. I know it's not good at all. When I heard these two people, I'm
It's okay,
ashamed.
don't worry. Oh, come on. Yeah, there's one question.
Yeah, we have a dedicated, mostly for animation. We have Chinese students, and all the courses are in English. Yes. Yeah. No, it's for recording.
I'm just wondering, for your actual syllabus, are there any requirements that are put on you guys for it? Because I know when I studied an IT degree, when I went into the industry, they would look at what modules and requirements were there. So is there any precedent for that in France?
We have an interview, and we talk with you. We see what your level is, and if it can fit the skills that we expect for the school. And the barrier mostly is the age. It's very rare that we have students up to 25 years old, because we're in brackets of 16, 25 mostly. Okay. And we are. This is the answer or not? It's good. I'm sorry. Yeah, we talk after.
My question is for Julie. So I wanted to understand your company. You said it's 4 years old. You've got 19 people. You showed us the trailer. I want to understand, is that a prototype? You said you're raising funding. What is that funding for? And how do you maintain a team of 19 people right now?
Okay, so I think your last question is going to also feed the answers to the other ones. So basically, how do we maintain a team of 19? When we started, we were just 2. And when we were just 2, we didn't pay ourselves. For 2 years and a half, we didn't pay ourselves. But in France, if you have worked before and you close a contract, you can have the chômage, basically. And it's a grant from the government that will give you kind of a salary the time you find another job. And you're eligible to it if you create a company and you don't pay yourself for a short while, obviously. But still, it's a good help to start. So when we started, we had nothing but this. We kept as much money as we could, and we digged it into the company. So we founded our own company ourselves with whatever savings that we could have. With this money, we could apply for a subsidy from the government. That was a Kickstarter for us, because it enabled us to take our first interns, and that's when we got to the schools. And we used events like that, Fuzz, to actually go to schools, talk directly to the program directors, understand what the strengths of the school were, and select the people that way, and the schools they come from. And so once we started to have our first interns, we built a first trailer, not the one you've seen here, another one, that we used for a Kickstarter campaign, so crowdfunding. And then that enabled us to start developing a first version of the game, but that was in 2020. So that means that a year and a half went through before we were able to actually start developing the game, because we had not much money to put in there. And once we had the prototype, at that time we were like 7 people. We went through our first fundraising round, which was a pre-seed round for which we were aiming to raise around 300K. And the purpose of this round was to seniorize the team, because we only had junior talents at that moment, very passionate talents, but still junior. And so once we closed the round with something like 325K, yay, with mostly business angels and a gaming fund in the US, we could move on to recruiting more senior talents. That obviously cost us way more than the junior ones, and that's when the team moved to 19.
Sorry, Jill, to interrupt. You were talking, so you did the founding and the Kickstarter campaign and whatever. How did you what did you do to find those people that were investing in this? Well, that gave you actually trusted you to with 325K. How did you find those people?
Okay, so basically there is one rule. You take your ego, you put it into a box, you bury it underneath a, I don't know, whatever stock of pile of wood so that you can never find it again, and you burn it. And you go, once you've done this, and you talk shamelessly to anybody that you can find that is relevant to your industry. And you show your flaws, whatever like weaknesses that you have, because you have to show yourself truly if you want the people to trust you and to invest in you. Some people would try to hide their weaknesses, but we really understood that once you show where the people can help, they're way more willing to actually spend time with you and to invest in you because they understand you and where they can help you better.
So that means that you were traveling the world, going to shows and events, and okay. And how did you identify those events that were valuable and brought an added value to you and the company, and what you were looking for?
I would say that first there were some events that we already knew because we were gamers, even though we were not making games before, so we just went to those. Then we looked for them in the internet. Then when we start talking to people, basically, we had someone who would say, hey, you don't know that guy, you don't know that even, well, you should go, definitely. And I can arrange you a pass or whatever entrance to get you in. So it's building your network will go on a virtuous cycle. So basically, whenever you meet someone, that person will broaden your view on the industry and the events where you should go and the people you should talk to, and you end up in South Africa and you don't understand how.
Yeah, just two general questions. How did you get the French government to subsidize things and give grants to the video game industry? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. My neighbor here can help because, like, basically, if you don't know, you go to him and the SNJV.
It's been a 20-year really fight. There's been up and downs in the gaming industry. 90, 2000, 2010, this kind of up and down. I think there's two things. One, we're very lucky in France because historically speaking, video game has always been very powerful. A lot of consumers, and I always say the gaming was very early in Korea, in France, in England, in the US, and Japan. These are the 5 countries where it really started. So we're really lucky to have this. So this culture of gaming and animation and the film is very close now. It's the same people most of the time. When you talk about artists, they'll be working on a game, a film, or an animation, something. So we had this there, but we had a huge crisis, and it's really been this bottom-top video game trade association and regional association started to fight and to explain to the politics that gaming is not bad, it's not evil, which was the first problem. We still have this these days, less and less, to be honest, so that's a good news. But we can see every now and then when the massive shooting, always a stupid journalist saying what the fuck this is because of video game, but less and less, to be honest. So we managed to, let's say, clear the image of the gaming industry. And the second part, very important, was to explain it's a real job. I mean, you can have a real contract in a real company, have a normal life. I'm like Philippe, I've been around for more than 20 years. When I was looking for a flat 20 years ago, it was very complicated. I was in gaming, like being a clown or a diver, whatever. It was super, super hard for me just to find a flat. So really slowly, when the business made it as well, now it's a huge, it's a 200 million business a year, and it keeps growing. So the answer is there. There's so much money on the market, even if a lot is caught by the major publishers and developers still, there's enough money to feed a lot of people. So clarify the image, build some bridges with the politic, explain that it's close to the cinema, close to the TV shows, close to animation, and explain that there's a lot, very good business to be done. And when the regional association or us, we talk to politics, it's always how many jobs can we create in the region, in France, what's the value of all this? And now it's much easier because the market is good, and we have the pitches, so we can clearly, and this is a matter of pitch. When you have a studio, you need to pitch to an investor. when you're an association, you need to pitch to politics, and sometimes you have 5 seconds, 10 minutes, 1 hour, so you need to be ready.
Okay, not one question, probably more than one. So I've got 3 questions. Please bear with me. And one of them will be in French, I promise. So, firstly, it's sorry, I'm quite bad with names.
Davy, Julie, Philip.
Julie, yes, it's for Julie. I might say that it's quite insightful to be in this room and hearing what your government is capable of doing for someone that is not employed yet, or someone that lost their employment. And you don't have to worry much about certain basics for you to actually go on to your next journey, which is quite a different reflection, because when we look at our own contexts and what sometimes hinders certain people to also not build because they are worried about the daily things, when from your perspective that would actually kind of be, you know, assisted with the grant that you actually get, which is very very interesting and commendable from your government. But the question that I had for you is specific to the impact that you would be measuring with the game that you're actually building, because I'm assuming that it's within Serious Games. And how will you then be measuring that particular impact for something that is social impact? And also, what will be your business model around it, so that you can then keep on growing and then keep on doing, you know, a lot more of these? If it's that one game, what is the business model around it for the company to keep on now being sustainable? And the other question is for Philippe. The other question is for Philippe. Philippe, this one. Yeah. Yeah, Philippe, cette question est pour vous. It's about the 90% that you mentioned, which is employment rate, which is great, and I'm understanding that is when they're done, they get to be employed. But then what is the rates that you found in terms of startup creations or self-employment within the students that you actually have? What's that rate that you guys have in that perspective? And the 5 years, last question, the 5 years that you've mentioned in terms of the structure, I would like to understand a little bit more. How did you structure the curriculum for the 5 years that you have to do the game program that you have? And then once you're done with the 5 years, what do you think would be the necessity of an incubation for the amount of time that you spent in there versus just getting into you know, a publisher, because the games would seem like it will look quite good after 5 years. So I would want to understand that as well. Thank you.
Okay,
well,
so
I think that we will call Alex, because we need yet another hour to get all through all these questions.
I can answer with a small thing. Yeah, some students, the percentage missing, the 10%, some students, they decide to go for something completely different about video than video games. Okay, some decide to give up. It can happen, and mostly it's very difficult to see or to have the numbers of the people who are in employing themselves. Right, mostly they go for studios, and I have an example of people that in year 5 have created their game for the jury and the graduation, and they went for different studio after, and after 1.5 years, they decided to open up their studio in Montpellier with this IP. So, does this answer your question or not? Yeah? After, maybe for the curriculum, I may say we can have a talk all together.
We can have a talk afterwards. I mean, that's, you know, everybody can talk to us anywhere.
I have slides for this.
All right. Are there any other questions before we move on? You have.
He has a question for me.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Oh, yeah, sorry.
It's going to be quick, I promise. So business model, we make in-app purchases, skins, basically, and product placements within the game, so for other brands. And regarding the impact, there was a study conducted by the Pew Research Center in 2008 that shown that when you have a social behavior inside a game that you play to help other players, you're way more likely in real life to vote or to participate into an association or to create an association, for example. So there is a correlation, and now the question is, which way does it go? Is it because in real life you're like that you play this way? Or is it because you play this way and you experience it that then you change your behavior, you know? And what we want to do with our game is to conduct surveys at different timelines when the player is in game. So when the player joins, after a month, after a year, and to understand if gaming is impacting their social behavior and political behavior, or is it the contrary? And this we will be able to measure within a game if we follow up the players through their lifetime inside the game. And this is what we want to do. And then there is another thing about impact, which is we sell skins, but we want to do it in order for the players to also have an impact in the real world through what they buy and through the brands we support. So choosing brands that have impact to show them inside the game. Second, using part of the revenue we generate through the skins to fuel it back into social impacting actions.
Great. So we were talking about better relationships. Or have you ever experienced a bad relationship or a toxic one or a bad contact? I mean, yeah, get the names out there.
yeah, plenty. I think it comes back to what you said, the ego, toxic relationship. There's really two sides. When you start a company, usually when you're a bit more young, you think you know too much than the reality. So you consider something to other people to be not toxic, but let's say give bad feedback, you don't understand me, and actually you have no idea how to pitch, how to explain. So this is kind of yourself being toxic, thinking it comes from the other ones. On the other hand, there's something which is a bit dangerous when you start a company or studio, is you start meeting some people who's doing business, and this is the whole point. We do doing business. I mean, game is a business, and it's complicated sometimes because you have some proposal which seem very interesting, and I usually say to people, grab a proposal. It's really a matter of momentum. If you have money on the table, if you have a contract, take it, because it goes up and down. And really side things, we managed to raise money 2 years ago, and the company we raised money is going broke. So literally, it was very close when we managed to close the deal. And this is a very tricky part, because there's a lot of people we met trying to grab your IP, grab your work, grab your people as well. And this is where it starts to be toxic. As I said, in France, we kind of know each other and really well, so we exchange a lot of information and really some confidential data, because we trust the people, we know the people. So it is a bit of fighting, which is fine.
Are you saying that the French guys are always crystal clear?
We are. No. I mean, once you have a network and everything comes to the network and you start knowing the people, it's much easier to open to your network and be able to share some information.
Of course. We have a question here.
My question is for Davy. It's kind of still linked to relationships. So you've been in this industry for quite a while, and it sounds like you have quite a repertoire. You've built quite a repertoire over the years. Do you now have your own platform where you distribute all of your games? What does that ecosystem look like, and how have you continued to kind of grow and develop over the years?
Yeah, that's a great question. Everybody would like to self-publish, because it comes back to, do you need a publisher? Do you need a partner to a financial partner, or can you be autonomous? For instance, I did the opposite of what Julie did. Quickly, when we started the company, we wanted to raise a lot of money to quickly be able to ramp up and do what we wanted to do, high production value game. So maybe we've been lazy. We could have started slowly and still be autonomous, but we decided to go and raise money. So we had an equity deal, and we gave them some shares from the studio. But this is fine. I mean, you keep control of your company. When it comes to publishing, indeed, it's a very complicated topic. It really depends from indie PC title to free-to-play mobile titles. I would believe it's easier for indie developer to push on Steam and see if you have subtraction. On the mobile side, I know a few studios trying to self-publish. It's very complicated, especially in the mid-core and the core segment. you need some money, you need some partner, because a lot is based on marketing and acquisition, and this is where you can make the difference. So it's an easy question to answer. It's case by case, but yes, being autonomous, being free and self-published is the dream of many, many developers.
Well, sometimes you really need to rely on a publisher, and then again, I think it's very important to have your legal staff go through the very tiny words on the back of the page. So that's something that's definitely also something that you really need to consider doing, is have a good lawyer, helps you through all the hassle and the difficulties of the things that most of the developers hate, and that's paperwork. Are there any?
So one example, we had this, we had the deal a couple of years ago, which on paper seems perfect, and our lawyer blocked it because there was some personal guarantees on ourselves. If the company went broke, it was my house, my car, my family, and it was written in a way. Oh man, there was no way you could understand this. So it's true. It's this is where it can be toxic and dangerous for your life.
Hi. If you, it's a question for the three of us, of you, not the three of us. Just the three of you. To build better relationships, what one word quality would you recommend to have as a person who wants to grow, as a leader who wants to build his studio and etc.?
Okay, for my students, for example, when they go for internship, I always told them that they can meet someone that I used to work with, that someone can know me, and if he's doing bad things or bad work and so on, they are fired, finished. Because in France, it's a small network, let's say. Everyone knows someone that knows someone, and so on and so on. This is the link also. So you need to be almost as you are in internship. Sorry.
He asked you one word, not a complete
sorry.
lecture.
So you understand what I said?
I'm sorry, Philip. All right, Julie, one word.
I'll use 4. Communicate crystal clear, engage and empower.
Wow, beautiful. Woo!
What can I say now? I would say the opposite. What I just said is trust, because you need at one point to start trusting people. Be careful, but be naive. Sometimes it happened to me. Someone was a bit weird, and in the end, he was a huge fund. So my bad. So yeah, listen and trust.
For me, I would add honesty. All right. Any more questions? Because we are reaching time. It's 3 o'clock. Again, you can come to us after the session. We are here today, this afternoon. Some of us might have some meetings, but we are also here tomorrow. And thank you for being here, and I hope it has been insightful. And if not, well, then we were bad panelists. Which I don't think so, but thank you very much. Voilà, voilà. Voilà.
My pleasure.
my question was when I studied at university in IT, they have modules. They'll be like, this is your development software module. This is your business module, whatever. So in SAE, we have some modules as well. We have game production, design, asset design. So I just want to know like what kind of modules do you have in yours? Because I want to compare SAE. How far or how
Just give me 1 second. I want to change the
I
page.
am not all the things here because we are changing year by year. Right? Because you see the panel of the logo at the beginning. All these companies, it's a board for us. So they say we need this, because I like SAE. There are a few places in South Africa like there's Vega, SAE, and then obviously you can go to the main universities. You can get the.
Okay, so a few things that I want to make you aware of. Everybody needs to use the mic. So it's not necessary for the room, but it's necessary for the stream. Okay. So if there's a Q&A situation or anybody's interacting with you, shut them up, give them a mic, and then go from there.
Because I know that SAE is new in game design, and I want to be in the industry because I'm in game design. I mean, I wouldn't change from being a programmer to being a developer for games. That's how I'm throwing myself off the Titanic into the ice water. So I'm passionate, but it's I want to also give myself the best chance. So I mean, meeting someone like you who knows, who's run a school, like asking the idea. Rubica. Up to you. It's up to you, man. If it's entertaining, it's balance between doing really about you have psychology, theory, you have economics, many topics like this. And with this, usually you use your lecture to create something. You are not creating and then, I discover this. No, you have the lecture or along when you are doing the things and you have all the trainers. You need them, Discord, blah, blah, blah. All they are with you, helping you. So it's not showing something. And then I'm going to how much? Obviously you're networking. How much? So are you giving out emails so that people from South Africa can connect, or because I wasn't at the presentation you gave at SAE yesterday. So are you giving out your email and then we're sending portfolios, or what is? I have my phone. Wait. We'll do a different
Probably while you were still at school.
Should I just get your email?
You have everything here. You can go for the internet website and you contact me and see what, tell me exactly what you need and so on.
Do I send you images of things I've done at university, or
Maybe no, give me a link.
okay?
If you have already a website, okay, it's your time to talk. Okay, cool.
Because these dudes will come anyway.
These guys?
Yeah.
No. You have to ask them. Right? Is it yours?
No. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm in the rush.
That's fine.
Sorry again.
My question ended up being
Is it yours? Yes. Yeah. It was here. Thank you. That's the correct one, right? Low That's the correct sound out. Won't be crystal. Okay, won't be crystal. Alright. And the speakers will be your onboard speakers, so real text usually your sounds good. Your onboard.
Hi everyone, we're about to get started, please. Excuse me guys. Hi everyone. We're about to get started. Let's just wait for a few more people.
Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, there we go. It's like one of those moments where can I get oh yeah. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for the Xbox workshop. I'd like to introduce you to Temi. He's come all the way from Nigeria to basically talk to you a lot about the opportunities that there are within ID at Xbox, as well as just like development, game passes, etc. So there's a lot to learn today. And if you have any questions afterwards, please, the room is small enough, I don't think you need a mic. Just raise your hand and sort of ask the questions. Oh, you do need the mic for the stream. I apologize. I forgot about that. I should know, since I am the event organizer, that you actually need the mic for the stream. So if there are any questions, Temi will help field them. And yeah, just enjoy today and enjoy what Temi has to offer. And we hope to see you all again soon. There you go.
Thanks, Alexandra.
No problem.
Hi, good afternoon, guys. Thanks a lot for coming. As Alexandra said, I'm Temi Afolabi. I'm Xbox GXI Manager for Africa, and I'll tell you a bit about the GXI and our mission, and then I'll get into the presentation. So the GXI stands for the Global Expansion Incubator, which is a new team that was started this year. And the point of GXI is to go into regions where we don't typically get a lot of content on Xbox, and work with developers there to find out, why aren't they publishing on Xbox, how we can make it easier, and basically facilitate more games coming out of GXI regions. So GXI regions are Africa, India, Southeast Asia, Korea. We're going to get someone in Latin America as well. And so these are places where we don't get that much content from, but we know there's remarkable talent everywhere, and we're trying to build a pipeline in all these different places. So that's where I come in. Obviously, Africa, so that's 54 countries. So to cover Africa, you have to go to a lot of events such as this, where you can meet as many people as you can at once, and then sort of evangelize and build those relationships for further down the road. Microsoft in Africa and Xbox in Africa is a long-term plan. We understand that there are certain parts of the market where not everyone is prepared to ship a console game at the moment for various reasons in different regions of the continent. But we know that, if we continue to help and we continue to invest in different developers, we want to be on the right side of that trend, which we all know is inevitable. So I'm going to start with a little presentation on ID at Xbox, which stands for Independent Developer at Xbox. And this is the main way of publishing a game on Xbox. Self-publishing a game on Xbox would be via signing up to this. So we want to help you reach the global audience. That's the thing. So a lot of times when I speak to people, they have a lot of questions about Xbox as a console. Are we going to sell more consoles in Africa? If I make a console game, not enough people around me have consoles. What is the benefit? Why would I spend 18 months, 2 years working on a console game, so on and so forth? But we see it as you shouldn't just be making games for Africa. We can take your games to a global audience all around the world, and that's a big part of the GXI mission. Just a lot of ID at Xbox enables qualified game creators to unleash their creativity by self-publishing digital games on Xbox platforms. I'm going to show you a little video about this shortly. But here are some statistics to sort of give you an idea of how big this program is, and the audience that you can be introduced to if you're published. So 2,600 games in active development, 4,600 studios, 5 billion hours played on games that have been developed on ID at Xbox, 2.5 billion in royalties, so on and so forth. So again, this is about scale. Think bigger. If we do take on your game and publish it, these are some of the opportunities. And we believe a good game is a good game. Like, gamers will play, as long as the game is good, it doesn't really matter where it's from. We have the marketing reach to get your games as far as possible. Development, environment, and support. So any middleware and engine is supported. So Unreal Engine, Unity, and this for console and PC. Those are the platforms we cover. As we know, the African market is heavily mobile dominated. Again, for the same reasons why people don't publish that much on console. It takes a lot of time. It's hard to see a roadmap to return on investment. And also, people don't have 18 to 24 months to spend on a game often. So with ID at Xbox, it doesn't matter if you're using any of these engines. If we approve your concept, you will be given dev kits sent out to you, whatever country you're in across the continent. It's more challenging. We do know it's more challenging to get dev kits in some countries than others, and we are definitely working on that as part of the GXI plan. I think we've just got some shipped out to South Africa very recently, so we are moving in the right direction to sort of iron out those kinks. Yeah, and then ID at Azure is our cloud publishing, is our cloud program. And the beauty of ID at Azure is it's platform agnostic. So if you sign up to ID at Azure, you can get up to $5,000 in free cloud credits to develop a game for mobile, PlayStation, Xbox. We don't care what you're publishing on, and it's 5K in free mobile credits, which we find most developers don't use up. So I think it's a pretty attractive deal. And I'll just show you a video on that now by Nick, who heads the ID at Azure program. And yeah, enjoy it. And then we'll continue the presentation right after that.
Hi, I'm Nick Ferguson, Director of ID at Azure. Welcome to this introduction to ID at Azure, Microsoft's new program that offers independent game developers free tools, resources, and support to quickly get started using gaming cloud services, regardless of the end platform you are targeting. Here are some of the games that are using Azure today. Some of the biggest and most ambitious games of the last few years have been powered by Azure to reach millions of players. No matter how big the industry gets, it's important to remember that almost every game on this slide was built by a studio that started out as an independent developer. And that is why we are launching ID at Azure. The goal of ID at Azure is to empower independent developers. We want you to take advantage of the same services and capabilities used by those large teams building some of the most popular games today. We want you to be successful because we know that working with cloud opens up a lot of possibilities for the development of your game. ID at Azure helps you develop faster and work smarter using the cloud while providing you with support along the way. Who am I? I'm someone who loves the games industry, not just because of the incredible products we build and that I love playing, but because of the passion, talent, and enthusiasm that exists across the entire industry. I first got interested in game development as a kid, writing games in my bedroom for the ZX Spectrum, and then later at university on Sony's NetEuros. Here's a screenshot of the first game I made for the NetEuros back in 1998, which was reviewed a few years ago by the Bad Game Hall of Fame. I started my professional career as a games tester, which probably tells you something about my programming skills, and then I moved into design and production roles across various studios. Over the past 22 years, I've been lucky enough to work for independent developers, publisher-owned developers, and first-party development teams at Xbox. Most recently, I spent a few years working with the gaming teams at both Amazon Web Services and Google Cloud before returning to Microsoft to launch ID at Azure. ID at Azure is a new program Microsoft has launched to help independent game developers and creators use the cloud. Ultimately, our goal is to help your games and your business become more successful. ID at Azure is built using the same philosophy as ID at Xbox, which means that our focus is on how to empower and enable developers with aspirations to work with cloud. ID at Azure is open to anyone developing games. This isn't a program that is only for Xbox developers. It is open to all game creators, regardless of your end platforms. And finally, ID at Azure is open for applications today. Making games is hard. Everyone says it, but it's true. Our goal with ID at Azure is not to pretend that using the cloud is going to make game development easy, but we do believe it makes it less difficult. What we're going to cover today is why cloud? Why should you be interested? And what does it have to offer you as a game developer? What is ID at Azure? What are the details of the program? And how does it help you start working with our cloud services? And finally, I will share the details of how you can apply to join us. So, why cloud? Here at Microsoft, our mission in gaming is to bring the joy and community of gaming to everyone on the planet. And the promise we're making to players is that you can play the games you want, with the people you want, anywhere you want, in a world where players have access to more games on more platforms across more business models than ever before. We know that poses challenges for developers. And for people to play any game on any device, developers need the right tools to build games that are playable across those devices. Cloud is a crucial component of how we deliver that, whether it's the back-end components that power an increasing number of gaming experiences, or the technology that gets your games into the hands of more players. So, when we ask ourselves why cloud, developers need to be thinking about two key benefits: flexibility and scalability. Flexibility means being able to quickly iterate on your game design based on feedback you're seeing during development or early access. It means collaborating with talented developers wherever they may be located in the world. It means implementing functionality like cross-platform chat and translation that lets your players communicate wherever they're based. And it means enabling players to enjoy your game regardless of their level of skill or ability through a deep understanding of your player base using analytics. Scalability means global infrastructure to deliver lower latency and a better online experience for players of your game. Taking advantage of high availability and avoiding downtime. It means tools and services that can scale up and down based on your development needs and your game's success. The net result? Reduce costs and speed up development, all while improving your player's experience. So, that's cloud covered, but why Azure? Well, here at Microsoft, we are both a cloud platform service provider and a game developer, which uniquely positions us to understand and address challenges facing game creators today. With 23 first-party studios, we are able to build, iterate, and test our games every day on our global platform, making Azure better in the process. With Azure, we promise to deliver you proven, production-ready gaming services backed by an enterprise-grade cloud. At Microsoft, we know gaming services because we know games, and we listen to game developers' needs every day to see where we can improve and help you launch on any platform. So what can Azure do for you? When we talk about game services at ID at Azure, we take a solutions-focused approach, which means that we're thinking about the various challenges that developers face day to day. Solutions that might help include managing distributed development with remote team members, running multiplayer services for a cross-play, cross-platform game, analyzing game data to improve your difficulty balancing, or working out how to make your online community as inclusive as possible by using speech-to-text or automatic translation services. ID at Azure exists because all these solutions and all this technology doesn't matter if you can't take advantage of it to build and scale your game. We understand that cloud can be challenging for independent developers, especially those who don't have large teams or team members with experience managing infrastructure and running back-end services. A lot of developers are interested in the cloud, but they're not sure where to begin or what is possible. The goal of ID at Azure is to empower independent developers to become successful using cloud services, and we're looking to deliver this in 3 key areas. First, develop faster. We're providing free access to Azure services, so you can try them out for yourself at no cost. Second, work smarter. We're providing a collection of resources to help you get started developing with cloud, regardless of your previous level of experience. And finally, we're here to support you on the journey and provide developers with access to best-in-class support and access to the gaming cloud experts who work with this technology every day. So let's dive into this and understand the specific benefits you get as a member of ID at Azure. Develop faster means we want to enable developers to start working with this technology at no cost, so you can adopt it earlier in your development cycle. We're offering ID at Azure program members up to $5,000 in Azure credits. All developers are eligible for an initial amount of $500, with the opportunity to access more in the future as we start working together and we learn more about the game you're looking to build. We're also offering developers the PlayFab Standard Plan for up to 2 years. This typically costs $99 per month and includes $400 of monthly meters over PlayFab's free-to-start pricing plan. In addition to the benefits of the standard plan, IDEA Azure members also get access to extended service limits across various PlayFab services. The service allowances we are offering are extremely generous and have been benchmarked against the usage we've seen in some of the most successful titles we have on PlayFab today. The net result is that we expect these PlayFab services will be used for no charge to the vast majority of IDEA Azure members. And when it comes to working smarter, we've curated helpful resources for developing with Azure from across Microsoft in the IDEA Azure Education Portal. This is a great resource for all developers, regardless of your skill level. For developers who are new to cloud, we have materials that explain what is possible and how to get started quickly, with a focus on managed services, so you don't have to worry about infrastructure. For developers that have more experience, we have resources that show how to extend managed services like PlayFab using native Azure services, and how to build new products natively on Azure. Finally, for developers who are very experienced and may already be working with other cloud providers, we have our Cloud Guru resources, which contain detailed information about our services, including reference architectures and how to migrate your infrastructure to Azure. Our goal is to enable developers to quickly understand what is possible and provide you with the tools and information so that you can self-serve and be successful quickly. Here's a short example of how you might use the education portal. First, choose from the list of solutions available, which cover topics from using AI to running multiplayer services. In this example, we're interested in game data and analytics. Next, you can see specific solution areas, including analytics and game databases. We're interested in databases, and we want to find more out about Cosmos DB. That takes us to the Azure documentation, focused on gaming use cases for Cosmos DB. In addition to documentation, there is also a reference architecture, which shows how this solution connects with other Azure services. The final component of the IDEA Azure program is support. We are committed to helping support you on your journey. We know that game developers are really good at figuring things out on their own, but we also know that browsing documentation and working things out by trial and error isn't always the best experience. To help developers make progress quickly and avoid downtime, we're making it really easy to connect with the cloud experts at Microsoft who can help you. First, we're giving IDEA Azure program members access to Microsoft's top-tier Azure support package, Azure Rapid Response. This comes with 24/7 access to our support engineers via email and phone, with response times measured in just a few hours for most issues and as little as 15 minutes for a high-severity issue. In addition to Azure support, all IDEA Azure members get access to ticketed PlayFab support as part of their package. These tickets go directly to the PlayFab team, and you can expect a response within 1 day. We also want to help IDEA Azure members connect with the experts at Microsoft who spend all day working with games businesses to help them get things done in the cloud. And to achieve this, we're running regular weekly office hour sessions where IDEA Azure members can connect with our team in a video call and ask them anything that's on their mind. In addition to office hours, we're also hosting expert sessions where we'll be diving deeper into a product or service and getting members of that team to connect with the IDEA Azure program. This gives you an opportunity to learn about what we're developing, but also to feedback and tell us if this is going to meet your needs. So here's some examples of how we work with support. Azure Rapid Response is available in the Azure portal. You can visit the Help and Support section and file a support request using the drop-down fields. That will connect you with our top experts for solving your particular query. PlayFab ticketed support is available in the PlayFab Game Manager. And the office hours and expert sessions These sessions are scheduled in advance and hosted via Teams. We record all the sessions and make a note of the topics covered so that new members can take advantage of all the questions that are being asked. We also use this as an opportunity to feedback to the product and documentation teams. Whether you have early questions about how to approach a new workload, or if you're looking for specific guidance on an existing solution, our Azure gaming experts are available to help and provide suggestions and guidance. Next, I want to share a couple of case studies from developers who've been working with us over the past couple of months in our closed beta program. This first is an Azure case study. Some developers think that if you aren't running a multiplayer game, there isn't any reason to use cloud. But this case study shows that isn't true. Azure can't just help you with running your game, but with building it as well. Variable State is an award-winning independent game studio based in the UK. They've developed groundbreaking narrative games like Virginia and Last Stop. For their new game, codenamed Game 3, they're using Azure to work more effectively as a distributed team. They're using 2 virtual machines on Azure to help their game's development. One is a Perforce server for version control. The other is a continuous integration server using Jenkins. They found IDEA Azure to be incredibly helpful already, and they're also investigating using PlayFab for analytics and LiveOps in the future. Our second case study focuses on PlayFab. Thorium Entertainment are the developers of the critically acclaimed Undermine. Since joining the IDEA Azure closed beta, they have started using PlayFab to store their player save data in the cloud. Beyond the convenience for players, this comes with a number of benefits for developers, including the ability to access these platform-agnostic save files, which can help with diagnosing issues and restoring players' data. They've also been able to implement cross-platform leaderboards very quickly, which has driven a big improvement in engagement rates from the previous PC-only version. In the future, Thorium plan to use PlayFab LiveOps and analytics to improve game balancing, change in-game item drops dynamically, adjust enemy difficulty levels, and gain insights into the popularity of their builds. If all of this sounds interesting, we'd love you to join us as we launch IDEA Azure today. As a reminder, anyone developing games is welcome to apply to IDEA Azure. And I want to reiterate that we are platform agnostic, so we are open to developers across all platforms, whether you're developing for mobile, Steam, Epic, Windows Store, VR, PlayStation, Nintendo, or even Xbox. IDEA Azure is engine agnostic, so we're open to developers regardless of whether you're using Unreal, Unity, or your own custom game engine. And finally, IDEA Azure is business model agnostic. We are open to developers regardless of your chosen business model, whether that's premium, free-to-play, subscription, or any other model you care to mention. So, how do you apply? You can apply to IDEA Azure by visiting our website, azure.com/ID. Click the Apply button and complete our short application form, which asks for some basic contact details, some information about your studio, and your project. Once we get that application, you should expect to hear from us within 2 to 3 business days, and hopefully a lot less. Once you're accepted onto the IDEA Azure program, we'll give you access to our developer hub. This is a one-stop shop for everything you need to know about IDEA Azure. It includes onboarding details, how to activate your IDEA Azure member benefits, the education portal we discussed earlier, the office hours and expert sessions, and frequently asked questions and troubleshooting. One thing I should call out is all IDEA Azure members must sign a mutual NDA with Microsoft. Our goal with IDEA Azure is to be able to share as much useful information about Microsoft's cloud services with our members as possible, which might include details of pre-release services or software that we're not ready to share publicly. Ensuring every member of IDEA Azure has signed Microsoft's mutual NDA enables us to do this effectively across the whole program. Our NDA is mutual, which means that protection of confidential information goes both ways, and anything you choose to share with us is also protected. This could be information about your game, including planned release dates or target platforms, details about your workloads, or architecture that you share in a discussion with our cloud experts. We hope you understand that our NDA is in place to enable open communication and helps us make IDEA Azure a better program for our members. This is just the beginning. We launched into an invitation-only closed beta in December, and we're expanding to general availability today. Right now, we're continuously listening to developers via one-to-one meetings, emails, and survey feedback. We're really interested to hear what's good, bad, and what might be missing from the program. Our goal is to build the best destination for any developer looking to get the best out of cloud technology. In the games industry, so much innovation is driven by independent developers. We can't wait to see what you can accomplish with the tools we're providing through IDEA Azure. I don't know what it is, but I'm sure it will be awesome. If you've enjoyed this session and would like to explore what Azure and the cloud can do for your games development, I wanted to call out some other sessions that are available from Microsoft at GDC. We have talks across various tracks covering a really exciting range of topics, regardless of your previous level of experience working with cloud. If you see something here that you're interested in, I'd encourage you to check it out, especially if you're looking for talks with more technical depth than this one. Thank you for listening. I hope you found this talk interesting. If you would like to know more or want to apply to IDEA Azure, please visit azure.com/ID.
Actually, we're having an Xbox Discovery Day on Monday at the office in Mowbray, Cape Town, and Nick will be attending virtually. He'll be able to go into further detail. If people have, you can ask me questions, but if you have even more technical questions, Nick will be there available to answer those. And he's also looking forward to, we'll be giving details of this on Monday, but we're trying to increase the upfront amount given to developers in Africa just to further encourage sign up. So if you notice there, it said initially you start with 500, and as we learn more about the game, we open up more credits to you. But that can be adjusted to 1,000 upfront, 2,000 upfront, and so on and so forth, depending on how those conversations go. I wanted to also speak a bit about, sorry, going the wrong way there, about Game Pass. So, does anyone here know about Game Pass? Does everyone do? Oh, great. Okay, perfect. No, because back in Lagos, most people don't know about it, but everyone here seems to be on board, so that's a good thing. Progress. So yeah, Game Pass is, I would say, the core of Xbox's business at the moment. It's definitely the direction we see a lot of what we do moving into. So people ask me a lot of questions, customer-facing questions about the console, this and that. And while we'll always sell consoles and want to sell as many as possible, the business model does focus on a subscription format. And that will continue to expand across the continent and get bigger and bigger. So what is Game Pass? Helps you. Game Pass, well, you already know what it is, but you get 400 plus console games, 300 plus PC games, endless content to stream. So yeah, Game Pass increases engagement. People who have Game Pass play 40% more titles after joining across 30% more genres, which is natural. There are just so many games you get all the time. It makes people more likely to play games. And from a developer standpoint, it also means if your game gets into Game Pass, the audience that it's exposed to it's literally limitless. Engagement goes up by more than 8 times when a title enters Game Pass, which again, it's like having a movie on Netflix. More people are just going to see it because it's right there. So strong communities. GP members have 3 times the number of social connections on Xbox. Game Pass members are 4 times likely to stream their gameplay, which works more for everyone. If your game is getting streamed often, that's better for you, that's better for us. And yeah, here's some of the other perks that come with being with a Game Pass subscription. But I'm mostly developer facing, so we're going to move past most of this now. And just get back into IDEA at Xbox. So, registration for the IDEA at Xbox program at xbox.com/ID. And this is the process. So the first thing is the registration. Like ID at Azure, there will be a confidential info exchange. So there will be an NDA. It says purchase dev kits, but we'll give you the dev kits if you're approved. Submit game information. So approval process by internal portfolio team on your game. And that really is, it's different stages for different people. Some people it's just a concept. Some people already have a playable by the time they sign in. So we're not too fussy about where you are in development. We generally say the earlier you speak to us, the better. So then you build on the gaming development kit after we sent it to you. And then certification. So we make sure your game adheres to our policies to ensure consistent experience. But that will go on during the development stage as well. So we will give you guidance on that. And that could be anything from mechanics to things like, you know, sensitivity issues, social issues, things like that. We've got departments that will play through your game and decide we didn't really like the feel of this scene. We thought this was a bit, you know, whatever it could be. Controversial, I would say. And then you publish your game. So top tips to help you succeed. Speak to us early. We always say, sometimes we speak to people and they're like, I don't know if it's ready to show you. As Nick said, a lot of the people on this team have been in the game dev business forever. So whatever you send, they're gonna make sense of it one way or the other. They're gonna understand that, okay, this is 2 years out, or this is a year out, or this and this is where you need help. But the earlier you speak to us and share assets, the better. Tell us where you are with announcements. The less is announced, the more flexibility for us. That's because sometimes we have things such as we might have regulations around SimShip. We might want release same day as other platforms, different things like that. So the earlier you let us know what your plans are, the more we can ensure we're both going in the same direction. How does your game innovate? Why is it the best in class? So, I mean, pitch your game really, and find your champion. We think that's basically internally, well, I'd hope to be your champion. But internally, that means find someone within Xbox that's going to follow up, that's going to drive your game, that believes in your mission, and is going to make sure, because working with a company this big, it is very easy for things to fall into the cracks. As you can imagine, we're seeing thousands of games every week. But if you've got a person of contact and you keep following up with them, well, you're more likely to get a response sooner. Research our platform. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. And ask us questions and tell us what you need. So the big thing about GXI, more than any other department of Xbox, is our core mission is to work with independent developers who we know, a lot of whom haven't done this before. So we understand that, and we structure our team in such a way that we're very hands-on with the help. I'll give you an example of a program which we're currently piloting, that starts this December. It's called the MVC program, and it's the most valuable creator. And what we do in that program is we take on a dev group. It could be a single dev or a group, and we give them funding. We give them 50K in funding, and then we also, that's USD, and then we also give them a lot of technical support. So, you know, weekly meetings with different departments. This could be on quality assurance, artwork, music, whatever it is you need. Will be the MVC program is supposed to handhold you through the development process until the game is released. We just picked the first team for that last week, so we're starting with them this month. Obviously, this is a new team which started this year. So the success of the first sort of take-up and the experiences from that, the learnings from that will inform how the MVC program expands and how we move it forward. That dev is currently located in Nigeria, but of course we need them from across the continent. And we feel South Africa is a very important market because we do need more devs here who are ready to publish, who are closer to being ready to publish on console, maybe have published on PC before. But like I said, the first recipients were from Nigeria, so it's for the entire continent. Wherever you are making good stuff, if you can reach out to us. Africa is a really big continent, as we all know, 54 countries. So I can only be in so many places at once, which is why events like this are important, where I can meet a lot of people. So I always say, and you know, in different countries where people have associations or have started associations, we try to work very closely with them just to expand our footprint and see how much we can find from each location. So Yeah, that is most of what I wanted to tell you today. I also wanted to speak about Xbox Game Camp. Xbox Game Camp is a program that usually lasts 3 to 4 months. And what we do is we go into different countries or cities, and we run a 3 to 4 month training program. And this is by some of the most experienced people at the company, and they go into the city. And after game camp, there are no restrictions, so you can get a job anywhere. You don't have to make a game for Xbox or for Microsoft or anything like that. It's just a free of charge. Register 3 to 4 months. We're going to train you to the best of our abilities, and after that, best of luck. And of course, if you make something and you want to pitch it to us, even better for us. So that's going to be happening in the first week of March next year. The first one, again, is going to be a pilot, so it's not going to be 3 months. It's going to be more like a game jam, Friday to Sunday, first weekend. And that's going to happen concurrently in Cape Town, Cairo, and Lagos. So yeah, everyone's invited. We'd love it if we have as many people as possible. I think it's a really great initiative. Peter Zetterberg, who runs Game Camp, is about a 30-year vet in the industry. So he opened a studio in Sweden, but one of the first studios ever opened in Sweden, actually. So Peter's passion is to take game development global, train as many people as possible, and they've gotten a lot of really good feedback, good results so far. So yeah, you'll hear more about Game Camp ahead of time, but I thought I'd let you know about that as well. And these are some interesting addresses if you want to reach out for Idea at Xbox, if you need any further information. My email address is temi@microsoft.com. I won't assume everyone can spell that, so it's T-E-M-I, Temi, T-E-M-I, then Afolabi is A-F-O-L-A-B-I. I have to check it. At Microsoft.com. So please, if you have any further questions, I mean, you can ask me questions now, of course, but if you think of some further questions later on, or if you have anything you think would be a good fit for any of our programs that you want to show us, that's literally the entirety of my role, is to speaking to you guys and finding out how and where we can help. So yeah, thank you all for listening, and yeah, questions please? Let me get you a mic. Thank you very much.
Hello. What I wanted to ask was, is there any chance that Xbox is looking into something similar to like a Skillshare or an incubator style grouping? Because I find, like, just as I was sitting in the expo chatting to a lot of people seem to either have like a really great idea or really great skill sets in certain aspects. So maybe like there's just a modeler or just an animator, or maybe someone really great graphic design or dev. Is there any chance that Xbox is looking into promoting exposure of those individuals in the ecosystem that you're trying to create, so that maybe someone who doesn't have the animating skills can actually connect with someone in the ecosystem you're looking at? So it's like, I'm a dev, I'm looking for an animator, you know of an animator, and then you can kind of connect people with similar game ideas or similar interests or similar styles they're looking at to promote both of them and allow them to actually get something off the ground.
Yeah. Thank you, and that's a really good question. So before I answer it, I will say that, as I said, this is a new team, so a lot of the structure is being built, and that's something I've realized that there's an opportunity in. One, upskilling and coaching people, but also help putting people together who have different skill sets to work together. So I think that's a big part of what Game Camp does as well. It's finding people. So within Game Camp, if you're already part of a team, then you can work as a team. But if you're solo, we'll put you in a team that needs your skill set, and then train you all together to release something. So yeah, that's definitely something we're looking at. And because this Game Camp is a pilot and it's a weekend event, I don't know if it'll happen this time, but typically that is what happens at Game Camp. So yes, absolutely. Thank you. Anyone else? Or we're all, okay, thank you.
I got a couple of questions. I'm gonna group. Okay, so firstly, Azure. It's a platform agnostic, so I'm more interested in the VR side. So I take it with Azure VRs. Is that included, or is it only
Yes.
console PC? Okay.
No, it's included.
And then with the Xbox Dev ID at Xbox, is that Xbox console specifics?
Yes, that is Xbox One.
Okay. And then also when you guys are saying get in touch early, get in touch soon with your concepts and ideas for games, does that include just developing your game to be ready to go on Xbox, or does that include possibly getting funding from Microsoft or Xbox for your game?
Okay, so that's a good question. So if I get you correctly, are you asking if you've just got an idea, you don't have anything yet?
Yeah.
Will we fund that?
Yeah.
The short answer is it would be challenging without anything, just because of how competitive it is. So a lot of these games go through our ID prospecting team. So we all share them together. It could be like 100 people literally. And we give opinions on the game. Sometimes there's a poll. What do you guys think? Well, so I say that to say it increases your chances if there's something we can see and can get excited about collectively. That will speed up the process. But at the same time, we've worked with people that are very early. Sometimes people just have a trailer and it's not gameplay, just an animated trailer, and we like, oh, we like where this is going. Let's carry the conversation on. So that's what I would say. And also, Xbox and Microsoft, it's a really large company. So the GXI mission is not the only umbrella you could fall under, right? So if we see your game, if I see your game as a person of contact, and I show it to one of the other numerous teams, some teams have more budget than us, some have less, some are looking for different things. So the possibility of receiving funding is always there. Okay. But like I said, the more you have to show us, usually the more likely you are to get the funding at that point in time.
Okay, so yeah, what I actually meant was that it is funding specific as well. It's not just distribution.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so
It's
great.
funding.
So you can apply for funding and for for distribution.
Yes, you can
okay,
apply for
amazing.
funding.
Okay,
Yes.
awesome.
Absolutely.
Cool.
We all good? Okay. Well, thanks a lot for listening, guys. It's really interesting. It's really great to be here at Games Week in South Africa. I actually started at Xbox in February, and my first job mission was to attend Games Week in February, and that was a really exciting introduction into the scene here. And I must say, I'm here again now, and a year later, I'm even more excited than I was back then, and I see a lot more opportunity within the industry for us and also for all of you guys. So yeah, I just want to say I'm really energized being around creatives. I love what everyone's doing, everyone's working on, and I really do hope we can support and build the scene to a level where we can take a lot of pride in it. And I do believe there's incredible talent all over the continent, and I'm very passionate about bringing that to our company, but also to the world. So please feel free to message me whenever you have any further questions or anything like that. And yeah, I'm always available. Thank you, guys.
Must I use your full title?
No, God, no.
Dr. Peter.
No, no.
Dr. Peter Kona.
No. It's only when I want to, you know. I've read something. No, I only use that when I go to the GP's office.
Okay.
Then they don't make me wait. And
So-
then they apologize.
Or when you know you need to go and pull rank.
No. My supervisor said the only person who's supposed to think you're an actual doctor is the bank who will give you a loan. Yeah. Thanks, Dan. Where's Sean?
Be rowdy. Because we already know it. Didn't you hear the 30-second things? Nothing's changed. And if you don't know what that means, well, you're in the wrong venue. Don't worry, Raymond. How many lawyers do we have in the room? That's my first question. How many are from South Africa and how many are international? Okay. Who else is kind of interested in what's going on and whether it's going to affect you? Okay. So, Dimple is leaving Yelko. She's resigned. Yeah, that's what I'm checking now. How up?
Have you not started yet?
No.
If we wait for Dave, we might as well just go to the bar and do this tomorrow.
We'll give it two more minutes. I mean, you jest. But
Sean and Dave didn't rock up, and it also didn't happen. Causation, correlation.
it's this like entropy aura around him. Okay, Sean. Give him a round of applause, everybody, as he enters it. Come on. Something like that. Okay. One more minute and then we'll start.
Yeah. I think my part of the talk is very relevant to Dave. It's all about occupational injuries when working from home.
Wait, we're doing that?
Well, I
Oh,
mean,
you
that's
just
actually
added
one
the
of the
last minute.
updates that
Okay,
makes sense,
cool.
I suppose.
Sweet.
Remember, we know things.
Yeah, I suppose.
Because we looked it up with Luke. And you know, have you seen Luke prep for a presentation? He does it like 32 times. So. I saw that thing way more times than just that Slack huddle. Yes,
Yeah.
sorry.
24 but
Right.
All right, let's start. Welcome everybody to the regulatory update. This is a bit of an experiment. It's something that I picked up at some other game conferences, and I thought it would be useful. So just out of interest, how many people in the audience are actually lawyers? Is there anybody studying law? No? Okay. The one lawyer in the room, I know who you are, so I'm not going to ask you the following question, but I'll just do it for prosperity. Are any South African lawyers in the room? Okay.
No,
and
there
any
are other people
Are there any international lawyers in the room? Okay, cool. So we've got our context. So the idea behind the session is to kind of give an overview if there's been any major changes in legislation or laws that are relevant to the games industry, and whether you are an attorney yourself or you are operating a studio or in the games industry, to get an update of kind of things that you need to be aware of. With me today, I have Jesse from Michelson's. It is a boutique information communication technology law firm. And they do a lot of work in the games industry. They represent, they're external counsel for a lot of the game studios. And I also have PK, who is the COO and internal counsel at 24-Bit Games. And obviously I am Nick. I am the CFO and in-house counsel at Renderheads, along with the head of IESA, where I do a lot of policy development. So, what we're going to do is we're going to hand over to Jesse first, and he's just going to go over the big kind of like touch items, major updates. There's like 4 or 5?
It's about like 4.
Okay, there's about 4 kind of major changes that we kind of need to talk about, and he'll just kind of give you a very broad overview of what they are, what they mean, what they're impacting. Then PK, do you have anything specific you want to talk about?
I'm going to talk about the intermediary and platform inquiry, what we gave evidence on last year.
Okay, yeah. So PK will then
a little bit about labor law.
Yeah, PK will then make his kind of contributions, and then really we're going to kind of open it up to you. So if you, after listening to kind of what these things are, if you have kind of specific questions around how that's going to impact your business, what that means for you, if there's things that you're going to need to change, how that impacts maybe your contracting or your internal policies, then it's the opportunity. In between the 3 of us, we can probably answer all of your questions. With that, Jesse, I hand over to you. PK, just when you speak, remember to speak into the mic.
Cool. Good afternoon, everyone. So, over the past 2 years, there's been probably about 4 regulatory developments that are most relevant for the games industry. There's the one that you guys have, well, there's 2 that you guys have probably heard about more so than anything else. The one is the Protection of Personal Information Act, or POPIA, the one that everyone thinks is going to stop direct marketing from contacting you. I'm here to say, no, that's not what's going to happen.
That's the Consumer Protection Act, but that also hasn't worked.
Well, I mean, that was also the Consumer Protection Act, but like with the Consumer Protection Act, it really just was there and it was gone.
No, the most interesting part about POPIA is the fact that it guards against the rise of the machine. So some legislator, someone, somewhere watched Terminator 2 growing up and went, yeah, I will one day have an opportunity. But we'll talk about that later, I suppose.
Talking about Elon Musk, by chance?
God, no.
Okay, cool. So
many things, but not a lawyer.
So I'm going to get started on POPIA first. So the easiest thing to remember about POPIA is that it is our data protection law. So I don't think, or maybe most of you guys would have heard about the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, up in the EU. That is our answer to trying to comply with data protection. I wouldn't say it's the best piece of legislation, but it's something that we at least have in place. So the most important thing you need to remember about POPIA is, and it's essentially how, who, when, and why. Sorry, what and why. So the how, so the what is, what data are you, personal data you're processing? How are you processing that personal data? Why are you processing that personal data? And how are you processing that personal data? And that's all you really need to know. There's a whole lot of other intricate details around POPIA, such as what role you would play in that relationship, particularly around, you know, whether you're the responsible party. That's where most of the risk actually lies, because it's in the name. You're responsible for the data that you're processing. The other end of that relationship is the operator, who effectively is the one that has been appointed by the responsible party to process your data. Or the data of your customers. So to contextualize it for someone working in the video game industry, your largest risk, most likely, depending on what side of the spectrum you sit. If you're in development, it's going to be your own employees. But if you're on the actual delivery and maintenance side of it, you know, an easy example is a multiplayer game, you are going to have massive amounts of personal data on your players, the people that play the game, on the consumers that buy items off of your platforms. And it's the same thing for mobile games. Mobile games carry a lot of risk.
Well, I mean, so with mobile games already, a practical example there is if you put something up on the App Store
you have to provide a privacy policy when first you place it up on there. And usually they just kind of give you your their stock standard one to put on there, which you probably shouldn't do, just by the way.
Definitely not.
But I mean, that's already an example of how, you know, those things have changed and, you know, things are happening in practice.
Yeah. So the most important thing about data protection is, and POPIA specifically is, it's all about your own individual organization. There isn't a particular standard that, you know, for example, if you're a small-time studio, they're not going to hold you to the same standard that a large-scale Epic Games, Amazon, they're not going to hold you to that same standard because your risk is different. The risk for each type and size of organization will be different. The security measures you need to put in place to protect the data will be different. So, yeah, that's really all that I would need to say about POPIA.
So I think the example that you meant about, like, you know, user data, there also needs to be qualified there, because remember, user data, only if it's readily linked to an individual will it be seen as personal information. So if you're just getting like aggregated, anonymized data off of like Steam Analytics, that's not the thing you need to be worried about.
So POPIA only applies to personal information. We use personal information.
If an account is being created for the people playing your game.
You effectively need to be able to link the information that was provided to a living individual person. Yeah, I think that's the most important bit from POPIA. The other one
well, you know, given we're just also talking to, you know, like the people running businesses here, there are a couple of things that you need to do, but the information regulator is too busy literally cleaning up its own mess, because the largest data breach in the country was actually the people who are the bosses of the information regulator.
The Department of Justice data breach,
But since POPIA came into being, was it last year, June, that was the deadline?
Yeah.
If you are the director, the CEO of a company, you are the de facto responsible party, the information officer in your business.
Yes.
But you still need to tell them that. So you still need to go and file your form. You also now need a privacy policy. You also now need a PIA manual.
Well, PIA is not necessarily, PIA is linked to POPIA, but so PIA is the Promotion of Access to Information Act, which up until some time ago wasn't something that a lot of companies needed to worry about. And then once the information regulator came into being, there was a mandate given from the Department of Justice done in terms of like one of the regulations that all companies in South Africa, irrespective of the size that they are, and I mean by size I mean it could literally be the person on the street, the person on the street with one employee or just the sole proprietorship, you need to have a PIA manual. Your PIA manual is effectively what information you have. It's a way for someone like myself or like PK or like Nick, for example, if you want to take advantage of a particular right under either the Constitution or under any other particular law, and we need information to be able to enforce it. You would effectively make an access to information request, which and the information, or rather the categories of information that particular company would hold would be in the PIA manual.
So a good example of this, and the way we're going to segue to the next piece of legislation, is, for example, the Films and Publications Board has said that there are certain platforms that they have agreements with, and that if your content is hosted on those platforms, then you don't need to register with them or have your content classified, but they failed to give us that list. You could use PIA to force the FPB to tell you what those contracts are, because you have a right now that you're trying to protect. And so with that, should we maybe talk about the FPB?
Yes, let's do.
So we can definitely, So the Film and Publications Act is another is the best way to describe it is it's like playing Minesweeper on expert level. The legislation has been drafted so poorly, no one really actually knows what the proper effect is supposed to be. So the Film and Publications Board had a press conference in, I think, March, when the Amendment Act finally came into operation. And you know, they were trying to clarify a lot of the points, and one of the big points that they made was not everyone needs to register as a distributor, because what happens now is if you are uploading content onto Facebook, onto Twitter, onto YouTube, you're streaming something on Twitch, you are technically a distributor. And if you have not registered with the Film and Publications Board, you're breaking the law. Now, that's what the law says, but the Film and Publications Board says otherwise. They said unless you're a commercial online distributor, you don't need to register, which once again doesn't make sense, because the Act literally draws one little distinction between commercial online distributor and non-commercial online distributor, but the offences apply to both parties.
Yeah, Nick's going to get triggered soon and then start ranting. But, you know, the one problem when dealing with any type of, you know, film and publications stuff in South Africa is not just the Act, but also then the board, which then sometimes says, oh, no, that's fine, ignore the Act, and then sometimes pretends like something is in the Act and tells you should do it. And we're like, where is that? And it's like, no, it's in there. It's like, really? Where? And then they'll tell you it's such and such a section. And then we will literally point out to them that the opposite of what they just said is in the Act, and they'll just pretend like they didn't hear you and carry on with the presentation. And now Nick's going to rant.
Yeah, I wanted to say I've seen many Twitter arguments taking place between Nick and the Film and Publications Board. But I think, Nick, before you go on that rant, I think the most important thing you need to remember is, irrespective of what the board says, whatever is said in the law, you need to comply with. It doesn't matter. The Film and Publications Board is not authorized to make law. They can't make law, even if they, you know, yeah. They're essentially a creature of statute. They need those registration fees to function. So, you know, it's in their interest to have so many different people register with them. It is in their interest to classify content, or to get them to classify content. And even then, you know that I was having a look at the Act yesterday, and it said, and only commercial online distributors can self-classify. Non-commercial online distributors can't self-classify. Yeah. I find that very strange. But the way that the bill is drafted is that the Act is drafted is that it literally tries to show the net wide. I understand the intention there is to make it as technologically neutral as possible, but that's a problem because there's potential to curtail some fundamental constitutional rights to freedom of expression and freedom of speech.
Yeah. So just from an obligations perspective, what does this actually mean for you? So what we know is that the important kind of words there are, if you are distributing games, you have to register with the FPB and you have to get those games classified. Distribution basically means making available to the public in its simplest form. If you are distributing via something like Steam or the Google Play Store or the Apple Store, you're fine because you're not the distributor. Those platforms are the distributor. You're not liable for your content that is up on there. And as I've alluded to, there are agreements in place supposedly with the platforms themselves that say if you are on and you're distributing through their platforms, then you don't need to do. The two kind of big things that I think are relevant for us is that under the new legislation, it is now possible to have foreign classifications recognized. So if your game has already been classified under PEGI or the ESRB, that could be recognized in South Africa. So there's functional...
The word could being very important.
Yeah. So functionally, that is something that is now possible. The problem that we've run into at the moment is that the actual mechanism by which that would be possible, so how do you actually apply to the Films and Publications Board to get that classification recognized, doesn't exist. And so they're building that out at the moment.
Also, neither does the self-classification guidelines, although they are drafting them.
So the second thing is that there's a possibility now, again, that you can self-classify. So that is, you don't need to go to the board and submit your registration and get your game classified. You can say, we know that this is a PG game for violence or whatever it would be, and you can apply that to yourself. Again, the problem at the moment, I see your question, the problem at the moment is that you do not, there is no mechanism by which you can apply for self-classification. All that stuff is currently being developed, though, by the FPB. The recommendation would then be, whatever you do, do not distribute your games via your own websites. Because as soon as you do that, you are now a distributor, and if you're not registered with the FPB and you're not getting those games classified, you're breaking the law. Okay, Natalie, then Danny.
And there was Ray, you also had a question.
Was it Ray or Natalie? Both. Okay. Yeah. Don't speak until you've got a mic.
Okay. Are we going to start with Ray?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this sounds so complicated, everything you guys are talking about. As a startup with limited resources, they need to prioritize. What would your advice be to a startup with everything that you guys are talking about? Like, is it something I really should be worrying about, or should I be trying to get my game out and then worry about? Like, how do I prioritize everything that you guys are talking about?
So I think the FPB does not need to be an issue for you. You can make it not your issue by not distributing outside of the formal platforms. That's the simple answer. If you don't want it to be an issue for you, just put it out on Steam. Itch is a bit more questionable, so maybe don't do that. But if you're doing mobile, stick to the formal platforms. As soon as you are putting it on your own system, you're exposing yourself to liability. That is the simplest and cleanest answer that we can give you, unfortunately.
Hello. With the laws that we've talked about so far, which of them apply to sort of the company being sort of headquartered in South Africa versus the customers being in South Africa?
That is a very good question. So Papaya applies to everybody processing information in the country, regardless of whether you're headquartered. And the FPB only has jurisdiction on content distributed in South Africa, regardless of where you're headquartered. So, you know, just as an example, recently I was at a law conference in Vilnius in Lithuania, and I met with the head of legal at Square Enix. They have to worry about the FPB because they distribute games in South Africa. That's an example. So the fact that they're not even here, they're like, no, but we still have to apply and have to worry about it. So, yeah. The FPB is maybe a bit more, there's this interesting thing is that technically, right, that means if you're legally distributing it to South African consumers, if you were to geo-block your game as an example, so you could say, put it up on your own website, but then prevent South Africans from accessing that content, you're no longer afoul of the FPB. You've circumvented it even though you're based in South Africa. If they then break the law by circumventing your geo-blocking to get your content, you can say, well, I didn't make it available to them, they somehow got it through some other means, that's not my problem. So that's the thing. But Papaya doesn't have anything like that. If you're processing their information, you're doing it. Okay, and then Danny.
So my question is, what from the perspective of the law, what does selling the game on your site mean, or distributing the game on your site mean? Because, for example, you know, hypothetically speaking, if a company were to be accepting money from human beings on their website and then giving them a Steam key, is that distributing the game? Because Steam is the distribution platform.
Yes, that is a very interesting question. So distribution does not require a commercial relationship. Is it made available? Now, in that particular instance, I think there's an argument to say that you are not
someone else.
Yeah, providing you're not making the game available to download on the site itself, there is still, so the thing is, you look at like the practicality of it. On Steam, theoretically, the game still has an age classification. You're just giving them an access code to it. You're dealing with the financial transaction, not the distribution transaction. So that in that scenario, it's fine. If you had a demo available to download off your website, now you're distributing, and that you need to register, So keep the actual files, that ordering mechanism off of your site. Selling keys, that's fine, because they still have to go through this other platform then to actually access the content.
And then I have a second question. Given that there is no system currently for people to submit to self-classify with the FPB, is self-classifying on any of the other systems that are available a show of good faith in any way or not?
It does not matter, unfortunately. I mean, I would still recommend that you go through IARC anyway. But yeah, the argument saying, well, I classify, I've got an ESRB or I've got an IARC rating or I've got a rating, the FPB, if they wanted to go after you, would say, well, it doesn't matter because that is not valid in our country. So you need to apply and distribute and Yeah, but that in itself doesn't matter as well, just because, remember, there is no, you cannot pick and choose how you wish to comply. You have to comply. And if an alternative does exist for you, which is registering and getting the content classified, then the onus is on you to do that. The fact that other mechanisms theoretically exist, but there functionally is no way to do them, does not excuse you or absolve you of that liability.
You indicated that itch might be a bit more like legally grey versus, say, Steam. Why is that?
So it's the same kind of argument why YouTube. So the problem comes down to the nature of Steam is for the most part definitely a commercial distributor. Financial transactions are happening for all that. YouTube and itch, in this example, yes, you can monetize through itch. Yes, there is a payment gateway, but mostly it's just free. And so the nexus between who is responsible for distribution becomes a little bit blurry there. And that's why we say it's a gray area. I think the valid interpretation is to say, well, no, itch is still the distributor, right, not you. But then it comes down to a practical consideration. The FFB is going to look at this and say, well, there's no way we're going to be able to go after itch. You are, however, in the country. So we're going to go after you because you are the one who put it on itch. And so you have a legal responsibility to ensure that your content is classified.
And so then like a follow-up question is, what are the potential penalties or, like how deep in hot water can we be here?
So a failure to register with the Films and Publications Board is a fine of up to R500,000 or 18 months in jail. Failure to have an item classified and distributing it, so distributing an unclassified content, is 6 months in jail and a fine of up to, I think it's like 100,000 rand. I'll need to check. I haven't looked at the regs that recently, but it's around, that's 150,000.
Sorry, how are those two different, sorry?
So you not registering with the board as a distributor is a penalty. So that's one thing. You then actually actively distributing content without getting it classified. So a registered distributor could still distribute content without getting it classified, and that's still a penalty. So there's two separate criminal acts. And then depending on the nature of the content, you could be doing a whole bunch of other stuff, which has even more severe penalties, like don't distribute bestiality stuff.
Before the amendment, you could.
Yes, but we don't go down that. Okay, are there any other kind of questions related to the FPB specifically? Can we pass the mic, because then I think we'll go copyright. So let's do cybercrimes. I think that's a good mix, actually. It's a good.
Hi there. Yeah, my name's Jeremy. I'm just wondering, on like a personal level, I've got a bunch of games on itch as part of my portfolio. Should I also be worried?
Yes.
So what
they don't care. They don't care whether you're a company or a personal person.
So you should just actually remove them, all right?
Well, you see, look, we know for a fact, and I'm really worried that this is recorded and then there are people writing notes, and so this may or may not become public statements. So I'm going to be very careful about what I say. This is off the record for the journalists. Practically, we know that the FPB does not have the funds or the means to police this properly. Based on how they've operated in the past, they're going after the high-hanging things. They're going to go after the Steams. They're going to go after the Netflixes. They're going to go after the people that they know that if they sue, they can actually get the money. Because what's the point of finding you, R500,000 rand? You don't have that to pay. Well, I mean, maybe you do. I make no assumptions. Right. So no. Realistically, no. I think also in the itch particular instance, it's enough of a gray area that it's not even worthwhile them doing it. If given the importance of your online portfolio, I think it is a calculated legal risk to leave them up there unclassified. Because also there's an argument that says we don't know if itch is one of these platforms that has entered into an agreement. We don't know, though. It's, you never know, right? I mean, I don't even know the FPB knows that itch exists. And this is kind of this, we understand from a policy perspective, this is a problem for me, because when we want to raise complaints, well, what about this, what about this, what about this, we realize that we're potentially exposing other platforms to liability, and inadvertently doing more harm than just being quiet and waiting for it to happen. So, yeah, I wouldn't go seek proper legal advice, but I would say that probably don't remove them. Realize that under a certain interpretation of the law, you are potentially committing a crime. You whether that crime will be enforced, very unlikely.
Just one more point on the FPB. They recently appointed their enforcement committee. I don't know, whether that means that they're going to start getting to work on, issuing, receiving complaints, issuing summons for hearings and the like. But, the systems aren't the gears are rolling. So things are happening.
So one thing about crime, and then we can talk about cybercrime. But like practically, that committee can either only make a recommendation as to what should happen, or they can levy an administrative fine. So that's not a criminal thing. Here's the more practical legal answer is, for anyone who's ever worked in a criminal court, neither of these two have, you as the FPB go with a commercial criminal docket to a junior prosecutor at a magistrate's court going, take that guy to jail, he unlawfully distributed a game. They're going to go, I don't even know how to prosecute this, I'm dealing with rapists. Then they're going to throw it out, which is the truth. So I would say I think it's a very calculated, very, very mitigated risk. I don't think you have to worry about this in practice. And now we're going to talk about cybercrimes.
Just like, what classifies as distribution? If I send a game to someone privately via email or something, does that classify? Was that totally
Yes, that's distribution. It's literally making it available to somebody else by any means or any mechanism. Hold on.
So we're fucked by putting stuff on Dropbox to a remote member of our team.
No, but that's internal. If you can obviously, that's not distribution to the public. That's if there's a commercial nexus. So if you can say, well, like, he's my employee or my co-contractor, that's fine.
And if it's like I'm pitching to a publisher?
No, that's fine as well, because again, there's a commercial nexus there.
Okay.
They are not consumers. I think that's the important thing. It's distributing to consumer, but remember, consumer is a broad thing, but it definitely excludes people that have a kind of a commercial relationship with you.
And like a in-person play test or online play test or something like that probably also fall under that?
Yeah, so the thing is that comes a bit more unclear, because if you look at film, for example, they need to get permission to do screenings, which is very similar to an in-person kind of test. And so that starts getting a little bit more gray. And I don't know if I can give you but again, realistically, yeah. Okay, cybercrimes. Let's talk about the shit that will actually get you in jail.
But also, on cybercrimes, and it's a perfect segue with what PK was saying about, you take a doc to a commercial docket to a prosecutor. They don't know how to prosecute, and it's pretty much the same thing that's happening with cybercrime. So before we had the Cybercrimes Act, we really just had one
4 lines, 5 lines.
5 lines in another piece of legislation that you wouldn't have even thought dealt with cybercrimes. At one point in time, it was a crime to jailbreak your phone. Wild, right?
At one point in time, it was a crime to look over someone else's shoulder while they were putting their password into their email.
Technically, I think it's still.
Yeah, technically that's still.
Technically, it's still technically.
Very technically.
Yes. So, Cybercrimes Act was our attempt to catch up with the rest of the world, because, and I love to make the Trevor Noah joke here. The world goes one way, we go the complete opposite direction. So we tend to play catch up a lot, and the problem with the law, as you've seen with both the FPB and the Film and Publications Act as well as POPIA, we're always playing catch up. Technology develops at an alarming rate. So the law is always playing catch up, which is why they then throw out very, very broad laws that can attempt to cover everything. So it's similar with the Cybercrimes Act, which introduces the whole host of new crimes into the law. Here's the problem. No one knows how to investigate. No one knows how to charge someone with the cybercrime, because those provisions aren't even enforced yet. And the reason why those provisions aren't enforced yet is because the police don't know what to do. you're probably thinking now, so what kind of crimes are we talking about here? It's the major ones. It's hacking. It's malicious communications. It's cyber theft.
Denial of service attacks.
Denial of service attacks as well, which would then, I think, fall under that, would fall under gaining access, unauthorized access to data. And
they're separate yet related. They're two different sections.
So best example I can give you of a cybercrime that actually took place a couple of weeks ago. How many of you guys actually took a look at those GTA 6 leaks? I sure as hell didn't, because I couldn't find them, but that was a prime example of a cybercrime. Because, and one would think, cybercrimes, you think, it's generally credit card information, it's people's personal data. They are linked, but there's also commercial value. You can also lose commercial value in a cybercrime. 9 out of 10 times, you'll be the victim of a cybercrime. Let's get back to the GTA 6 example. Someone managed to get access to early playthroughs early playthroughs of the game, videos of the developers testing the game, and they distributed amongst all different platforms. That effectively falls into two kinds of cybercrimes. It's not only hacking, but also theft, but then also distribution. So you're distributing copyrighted content, you're distributing stolen content. But yeah, the biggest problem that we have is no one knows how to enforce it, particularly from the perspective of the police, because right now the only provisions that are in place are those that create the crimes, but not necessarily those that allow the police to investigate the crimes. And that's really only because they drafted standard operating procedures to assist the police, and the public was called to comment on it, but nothing really took off after that. Generally, with these types of technological, with these kinds of laws, they really just sit there because no one really knows what to do with them, because no one really is qualified enough to figure out what needs to be done. If you guys have any comments on...
Well, so I think just a practical thing is, I think, and I'm not that au fait with the Cybercrimes Act because it came out kind of after I left practice formally. But I think something that would be very relevant for game development studios is harassment and cyberbullying a crime. And then it raises a question of, we know our consumers can be very toxic. If there is harassment or bullying happening either in your game or on your forums that you are hosting or managing, or you have editorial control over, do you become liable if you don't moderate that content? I think that's a potentially interesting conversation to have, and I think it's something that's very directly relevant to who is in the room, given that there's only one other way.
So I think just a little bit on that. There are reporting obligations on people in the Act. So let's say you're managing a forum. You would be considered an electronic communication services provider. Not only do you need to preserve evidence of that malicious communication, you also need to help the police in investigating it. So companies, in terms of the risk, rather sits on you helping the police and not necessarily committing any cybercrimes. And there are penalties for not complying with the law, and it's generally a fine or imprisonment. I can't think of the exact nature of how long the imprisonment is or the size of the fine, but and I know we've spoken a lot about different types of fines, but there's one that isn't really considered. It's the reputational harm, and the reputational harm is the one that far exceeds the 6 months in prison. Or the fine of like 100,000 rand, and that's the max. For example, could be the max that the court could or an administrative body would level against you. There's the reputational harm that you will suffer, which will far exceed that, and it can go into the millions if you're not careful, if you're not putting the right systems in place to monitor those forums, to make sure that you're protecting data, to ensure that you're classifying your content as well.
So I think just as a byline of that is that if you do have, you obviously need to moderate your communities, you need to moderate your interactions with your consumers, but when in that moderation, make sure that you have a means of an audit trail to back up on. If you need, obviously delete the offensive content, but make sure then you have backups of that. Should a complaint ever arise, you have a mechanism to show that yes, this thing actually happened. You don't need to preserving evidence does not mean you need to let it remain in the public sphere. Remove it, but have a means. Screenshots are also very valid ways of doing it. If your actual forum, or if you're using Discord, for example, or something like that, if the social media platforms don't allow for that to happen. Question? Can we? I'll pass this over.
So I take it we don't have any sort of safe harbor provisions in this country then to protect platforms from, sort of user-generated content?
So I think in the past we used to have those under the Electronic Communications and Transactions Act, where there was that mere conduit exception. The problem is, and it's also with like and it's funny that like the more I think about it, the more I realize how interrelated these three laws are. Because when you look at your obligations under the Cybercrimes Act, really, all you need to do is to make sure that when that content is there, you're preserving it. You can remove it, and you would need to preserve it so that when, for example, you need to investigate those crimes, you have that information available. It's not necessarily going to be that an individual data subject or an individual victim is going to come to you and sue you for it, because necessarily the harm isn't caused by you having the platform.
So, so Nick mentioned this, but I think I'll just reinforce that. So there are actually elements, both knowledge and editorial control. So if you have a control over that and you don't know about it, you're fine. But if someone then points it out to you and then you do not do something, that's when you tend to become liable, because then the assumption is, well, you know about it, you know it's wrong, you can do something about it, you're not. That begs the question, do you endorse this? And that, even when in certain instances, will create criminal liability, but will definitely create civil liability.
The way to think about it is that there are separate things. It's not a crime for the host to have criminal content posted on there. Someone harasses somebody on your forum. You, as the owner or the controller of the forum, are not guilty of harassment, right? Until someone points it out to you and you do nothing about it. If you do something about it, though, and you completely remove all traces of that harassment, you've now committed another crime, though, because you were meant to preserve that evidence. So they're two distinct things linked to each other. So just kind of bear them in mind, there's two different things there. Okay, that answer your question?
Yes.
You don't sound convinced.
Because, I mean, well, the reason why I was asking is because there seemed to be, at least in the US, a sort of difference between active moderation and sort of more of a passive kind.
Well, so again, that flows from the safe harbor provisions, or what we call the mere conduit rule. If you are actively, but it is also there becomes a nuance then. Well, what is actually active moderation? But if you are the classic thing is that, well, if your ISP was actively looking at each of your data packets and seeing exactly where you were going, then they have an immediate liability to stop any unlawful activity. So they don't. Just as you as a moderator don't have to necessarily legally actively be pursuing your content, but that's not good moderation. So there is a line there.
Jesse, you know this act better than the two of us do, but before the Cybercrimes Act, there was actually a specific provision saying there is no requirement for active moderation. It is a passive process. The only exception being, and this was before the Film and Publications Act was even amended, is, and it seems odd because that just means you always have to know what's going on. There was an active monitoring requirement for pornography and for child pornography. So I'm not sure if that position has actually changed in practice.
So it's still the same, even under the Film and Publications Act. So there's still a requirement for you to actively monitor whether or not someone's trying to search for child pornography on your platform. Literally, once the ISPs pick it up, they need to immediately report it to the Film and Publications Board, who then subsequently reports it to the police. And if it's internationally hosted, then they need to contact the relevant contact person within that country. So specific things, there's a requirement to actively monitor certain types of content, but it's mostly just child pornography or pornography in general that a child can get access to.
Let's talk about something light.
Copyright? Oh, copyright. Copyright's always fun because, and the fun part about copyright and where our copyright law is going is it's still in bill form, meaning that nothing's been made law yet, but it's been in bill form since 2013.
Popey was in bill form for 20 years, dude.
Okay, well, yeah. So once again, it adds credit to that, to the notion that we take a very long time to pass laws that would bring us up to scratch with the rest of the world. So the Copyright Amendment Bill, that has been the subject of a lot of debate over the past couple of years, particularly from the perspective of how we treat copyright infringement and exceptions in the law. So we're probably mostly, all of us, familiar with the concept of fair use. We have a lot of YouTubers and Twitch streamers use the term fair use. Now, fair use is a very American system that the courts use to determine whether or not something constitutes copyright infringement. And what the Copyright Amendment Bill is going to do is going to import that into our law. Problem is, heavily open-ended, no list of known exceptions, because the previous system was cool, you know, if I decided to use use a scholarly article for my thesis, I wouldn't be committing copyright infringement because I'd have an exception. I think it's called the educational
So it's, I mean, we're going into the academia territory here now, but basically the position has moved from there is a list of things that you can objectively do, and it's stated there, and that list hasn't completely disappeared, but what they've now also added, and some people are very pro this, others are meh, others are like, no, this is terrible, but there's now a defense, essentially. Fair use, fair dealing, the old position is, here's a list, you can just do this. If you do it in this way, no one can ever say anything. Fair use is you going, I'm going to do something that's probably wrong, but I think I have a defense, and I'm going to raise it when I get to that point.
The position is that we've moved from a hard list of these are the only things or these are the only defenses you can raise to giving the courts the power to determine whether things non-listed becomes. I think that's the big, that's the really big kind of difference. My personal take on it is I think copyright enforcement is so poor it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter whether we need to go to the courts or not. It's not really going to fundamentally change anything. I think the other thing, the other kind of big thing around the Copyright Amendment Bill, again, that is relevant for game developers and game development studios, are around some of the new exceptions that they've listed. So, for example, there's now not a positive obligation, but it is a defense for people to take your content and make it accessible for the blind, make it accessible for the hearing impaired.
So that's law now.
Yeah.
That's been like read into law by some of the cases.
By some of the cases. So there is some format shifting stuff, which I don't think is a bad thing, but just be aware that it is one of the
one of the other things that's also being strengthened, because it wasn't originally, well, it was regulated, but very badly, is what is referred to by lawyers as technical protection measures, what everyone else in the room would know of as DRM. So there's regulations coming in for that, which is not necessarily a bad thing, if only just they fix the wording thereof. But also, because of, I'll do this quickly, Nick, and we can skip the other things. I don't have to talk about my doctorate. Jesse and I actually did research on this a couple of years ago. Strictly technically, no, not your thesis. The other thing, strictly technically, modding is illegal in South Africa. If fair use comes in, there's a defense against that.
Yeah. So I do want to park, so I'm going to do the speaking now because I think I'm the one who speaks the least amongst the three of us, and we do have a limited amount of time. But another regulatory update that is worthwhile bearing in mind, we don't know of the impact it's going to have yet. But the Competition Commission has looked at the platforms, specifically the Google App Store and the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store, and they have determined that those are, what's the term, Peter?
That they have a dominant position which is potentially abusive.
Yeah. So what that means practically for you as developers is we could see, one, the ability to bypass the required monetization. You know, you could get payment from outside of the App Store through your games, even though they're hosted on the App Store. And the cut, the 30% cut that those app stores take is like, if our Competition Commission gets their way, is going to have to be reduced. And finally, one of the other recommendations was that in our territory, locally produced apps and games need to be given preference on the game store in terms of visibility. These are recommendations. The Competition Commission cannot force Apple or Google to do either of any of these things. What is interesting, though, is that it is part of very similar findings are occurring all over the world. Yeah. And so it's part of a groundswell movement. And so while our regulation update or our findings aren't going to do anything because it's part of a greater whole, you can expect maybe in the next couple of years a change on those platforms. And that is obviously going to be commercially relevant to you. Okay, we need to finish, but we can take one or two more questions. Both. Yeah, so basically so on a consumer side, it means that they will be able to pay by other means, which is for African could be a really good thing. But from a developer side, it means, you know, we could likely see Apple and Google and even Steam potentially and all of the major online platforms no longer being able to, as a flat rate, just say, well, 30% is the industry average and you just have to deal with that. We can likely see that there's going to have to be variance and nuance in that.
So the general idea is this is an indirect benefit to the developer, but it ultimately creates welfare and benefit for the consumer, which is why they are pushing for it.
Are there any other questions on any of the two pieces that we've just spoken about, copyright or the Competition Commission? Okay, well, thank you for enduring 52 minutes of law. Well done, all of you. Give yourself a round of applause. Yeah. Thank you very much, everybody. I hope you've had a wonderful day at Africa Games Week Day 2, and I hope to see all of you here tomorrow for Day 3, Make Games Africa, where we're talking about all the business of making games. Thank you.